I caught up with Roger a couple of weeks later for lunch in a Korean restaurant in Midtown, and over kimchi and bibimbap, he told me a story. It was the early 1990s, and he had been in the United States only a short while when he took a trip out to California to visit a girlfriend. After he had been there a few days, his girlfriend's father, a doctor, mentioned that he would be hosting a gathering of the Maimonides Society, a Jewish philanthropic organization for medical professionals. He told Roger not to miss it. The meeting got started at sunset with whiskeys and a short kibitz for 40 middle-aged docs crammed into a living room of a house in Tarzana. Roger stood in the back, watched everyone, listened to the clink of ice cubes in cut-glass tumblers. There was a film, a 3.5-minute documentary on the plight of impoverished Jews in some perilous corner of the globe. And the second it was over, a bald guy from the UJA Federation, dressed in an electric blue suit, jumped up, grabbed a pen from behind his ear and a little notebook from his back pocket and shouted, "It's mitzvah time! Bernie, you start." "I give 75,000, said Bernie. One doc shouted 50,000. Another gave 30,000. Cries of double chai, echoed throughout the room. One guy said it had been a tough year. He gave 20,000. The shouting ended after a few moments. The bald man's notebook disappeared back into his pocket. He smoothed the lapels of his electric blue suit, returned the pen to his ear. "Basket's yours, Bernie." Bernie accepted his small token of appreciation from the Jewish people, a cellophane-wrapped fruit sampler. 30 minutes later, the room was completely empty. Bernie left without the basket. Such was Roger Bennett's introduction to organized Jewish life in America. In 1991, the Council of Jewish Federations released the National Jewish Population Survey, NJPS, the first comprehensive census of American Jewry in 20 years. The NJPS data painted an extremely disquieting picture. The Jewish population of the United States was aging. Jewish adults married late and, with alarming frequency, tended to marry non-Jews. They had few children whom they provided with little religious instruction or sense of Jewish identity. They weren't members of synagogues. They didn't observe traditional ritual practice, and they didn't like giving money to Jewish charities. In short, their connections to the historical conventions of Jewish life and community were tenuous at best. At worst, they had been wholly severed. Jews, or at least those Jews aware of and concerned with Jewish censuses, panicked. 52% of Jews since 1985 were married to non-Jews. Only 41% belonged to a synagogue. 625,000 Jews were practicing another religion. Jewish women between the ages of 18 and 44 gave birth, on average, to 0.85 children. How is that even biologically possible? The reaction in the Jewish mainstream media bordered on the hysterical. The findings of the NJPS were described as gloomy, dismal, shocking, disturbingly bleak, notorious, and inevitably a Holocaust. The census sent shockwaves around the world, permanently altered the tone of Jewish communal discussion, inflamed communal debate, and caused deep anxiety, anomie, and a radical inner shift. It was so unpleasant that some people working in the Jewish community asked themselves, what's the use? The data was devastating. The demographic changes were not only unparalleled but catastrophic. People were anxious, depressed, and scared out of their wits. America's Jews were being wrenched apart by their own centrifugal force. There was doom and gloom. There was a continuity crisis, a threat to continuity. It was the continuity, stupid. The astonishing chain of Jewish continuity had been rent asunder, and Jews were assimilating with the speed of the 10 lost tribes. There were panicked calls for an inoculation against assimilation. The temptations of assimilation must be countered. If the erosion of Jewish numbers weren't halted, Jews were destined for the future of an endangered species.